Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody to another Voiceoctover for the year of 2023, where I interview various veterans of the voiceover world. We're back again this year, and happy to be doing it. And we're starting off very strong because we have today, and I truly, truly do mean this. I don't say this to every guest. We have one of my favorite performers ever. And you probably know her best as Tony Chopper in One Piece for the last 15 years. I can't believe it's been that long already. She's CL from Black Butler. She's Mineta from My Hero Academia, Holo from Spice and Wolf, Chaozu from Dragon Ball. She starred in the movie Summer Wars as Natsuki. She's been on camera on the likes of The Walking Dead, Star-Crossed, the movie Chariot. She's in video games such as Guitar Hero, Smite, Dead or Alive. She's Mad Moxie from Borderlands. She's a singer and a musician. She's directed, she's written, and also she's just a damn good mom. I have Brina Palencia today.
Oh my God.
It's
You're gonna
true.
make me cry.
Why? I mean, I'm speaking the truth. So that's really all it comes down to.
You are so sweet. Also, I'm your opener for this whole
Yeah.
season of it, I guess.
I always tend to get 3 to 4 guests every year, and I'm trying to go all the ladies this year, and you came to mind immediately. So what you can hang your hat on whatever that means coming from me. But often as I do these things, as many guests have suffered me over the years, I tend to always kind of bust the generic crap out of the way. But I want to learn some new things about it, because we've talked on and off and worked together many years, but I want to learn some new things. So let's start off with, as I described, I'd love to hear your tragic backstory as to how you got bit by the performance bug, and that set you on the path of insanity. I mean, success and happiness and joy in the world of acting. So let's take us back to a younger Brina, and even before we'll get into the anime stuff and all that.
Oh,
But
wow.
please give it, paint us a picture, if you would.
Yeah, man, yeah. Okay. So I grew up in a household of musicians. My mother is a singer, my dad plays guitar. They were actually in a band together in Central America, and I lived in Honduras until my parents got divorced. I was technically born in the US because my parents, this is like it's so TMI. My parents were separated when I was born. And so my mom is from the US, and so she moved back to Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was born in a town that I literally don't even know where it is in Oklahoma. And then and then I think the way she described it to me is that she was too exhausted. Like, she just got sick of not having help. Because in Latin America, because my family is not rich by any means in Latin America. They're pretty poor, but even poor people have more help in regards to child rearing. Like, it's much easier and more accessible to have a nanny and to have house help and all that kind of stuff. And the family structure is just so much stronger there. And so my yaya helped out in raising me a lot in my much younger years. And so she just, even though she apparently still was not cool with my dad, just wanted to move back and get back together with him so that she could have help with having two kids. And so I moved back. I don't know if I was 4 months or 6 months. It changes all the time, depending on how my mom feels that day, I guess. So moved back to Honduras, and then they got divorced when I was in kindergarten. And so we moved back to the States. So for me, I watched TV a lot because, once we moved back to the States, again, my mom didn't have a ton of help. We eventually moved in with my grandmother, so my mom's mother, and she kind of helped out. But my older brother and I were mostly alone all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Latchkey kids for sure. So we watched a ton of TV. And so singing was always second nature, just for the fact that my mom and I would sing together for as long as I can remember. I was constantly writing songs in my head and singing stuff. I never stopped singing, and it drove my older brother insane.
Were you writing your own stuff, like, even at that age too?
Oh yeah, like as I would just sing whatever I was doing. Like I preferred singing over talking. So that was kind of I never even thought about that as a career path. It was just sort of a given. Like, yes, I am always going to be singing and doing music. But acting, I remember thinking acting was really fun. And I was a really shy kid. I barely spoke, partially because when we first moved to the States, my brother and I were made fun of a lot because we had accents. Yeah. There's actually an incident where when I was in kindergarten, so my older brother had it a lot worse than I did because I'm very white passing, but he's not. He totally looks Latino, and like so he was picked on a lot more than I was. I was like blonde hair, blue eyes, like nobody.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like I'm very, very passing. But he told me that we needed to change our names because our names were too weird. And so he chose Michael for Michael Knight of Knight Rider, and I chose Lydia for Lydia Dietz.
Wow.
For Beetlejuice because I loved Beetlejuice, and Lydia Dietz was like my hero.
I mean, she's pretty great. Yeah. I see that.
Yeah, and that having rewatched that movie now as an adult, I'm like, I cannot believe I watched this when I was 5. This is insane. This is awful. I would never let my child watch that. Like, not at this age anyway. And so anyway, he was so successful with it that when my mom went to the first PTA meeting with his teacher, she said the teacher kept being like, oh, Michael, 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 Michael. And my mom was finally like, who the hell is Michael? Who are you talking
Where
about?
is my son?
Yeah, like my son's name is Gino. And like the teacher literally did not, like she had no idea that was his real name. And then for me, I was in kindergarten, so I barely knew how to spell my own name, let alone a name with a Y in it.
Oh.
Lydia. So I tried one time to sign my name as Lydia, and the teacher just like picked up my paper and was just like, who is this? And I was like, that's me. I'm so sorry. And so I mostly just tried to keep as quiet as possible, and I just did not talk. I was like so terrified of talking. And I in 6th grade, I remember there was a boy that asked me if I was capable of speaking because he had never heard me talk before.
Wow.
Yeah. It's crazy, right? Like thinking about what I do now as a living. But also in 6th grade, I remember in English class, I was very good at English class, probably out of survival to prove I had something to prove, like not knowing English that well when I was younger. So we were learning how to read scripts, and there was a script that was Peanuts. And so I knew, Charlie Brown and Peanuts, and I knew what the characters were like. And they were having us volunteer to read the characters, and I volunteered to read Lucy because I knew how she was supposed to be read. And I wanted to impress everybody. Like I wanted to prove that I could talk.
I do love the irony of that too, because it's flashing forward to Shin-Chan is like fucked up Peanuts in a sense. So
Yeah,
good training ground, really.
I didn't even think about that. But yeah, so I volunteered to read Lucy, and I remember the teacher being like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, and I just nodded my head, and so get to my first line, and I fucking nail it. Like everybody's like on the floor laughing. I hold it the entire time. Everybody applauds me at the end. It was like life-changing.
Wow. Yeah. I know. I feel like I hear that so often. It's just like some people say, "Oh, when the the curtains rose and I saw the crowd." It's always like one moment like that where it's like, "Oh, I want to be doing this forever now." I think, yeah, this is it for me. It's like, yes. It's over.
Totally. So I kept, I still was pretty shy, like for all throughout my early teens, especially. I think it wasn't until I went through my punk phase when I was like 14 and 15, I started becoming a lot louder and more angry. And so Yeah, I was always looking for excuses or opportunities to act. Like and it was always through English class. Like for whatever reason, there weren't a lot of theater opportunities when we lived in Oklahoma. It was always an English class. Like they did Great Expectations. They did like a reading of Great Expectations, and I played Mrs. Havisham or whatever, the old lady, and like got to wear like a white wig and whatever. It was very silly and fun.
So you were also already doing like kind of more charactery stuff at that point as well.
Totally. Yes.
Okay.
And I was also like, I was such a fiend for cartoons. I didn't like watching anything that had real people in it. I only liked, like truly, with the exception of like maybe Alex Mack, and I liked all that.
Oh, hold on. I have to be self-indulgent. Did you watch The Adventures of Pete and Pete growing up?
Oh my God, yes. I loved The Adventures of Pete and
I
Pete.
don't think I've ever
So
told you this, but I'm going
good.
to totally brag for a second. This is
Please.
probably part of why I got set on the path that I was on. My sister Allison was Ellen in that show, the girl.
Shut
Yeah.
your
She
face.
filmed that show all in New York and New Jersey with Toby Huss and Mike Morona, all those guys, when I was like an infant, and it
Oh
was
my
because of
God.
that I understood that acting is professional playing pretend for grown-ups. Got it, etc. Yeah, and she's a doctor now, and she was like, I'm done with acting, but like, yeah, that was
That gave
early
me
90s.
chills. I
I
feel
know
like such a dork that gave me chills. But yeah, oh my God, that's so fucking cool. I
yeah.
loved The Adventures of Pete and Pete.
And it's a great show. No, I know I'm biased, but no, it's a fantastic show.
It is
I love that
fantastic.
series. Yeah.
I want to go back and rewatch it. I feel like it's one of those that holds up.
It truly, genuinely does for sure.
Yeah.
And I would also say honestly, I feel like a lot of those series, as corny as some of them could be, like I loved Alex Mack and all that, and Keenan and Kel, all that stuff. Absolutely. So.
Yeah, Keenan and Kel. Yeah, they were awesome too.
Oh my God.
But yeah, but mostly I wanted to keep it to cartoons, but I was the one in our, friend group who would do the voices of all the cartoons.
Yeah.
And I don't remember having the thought of, oh, this is what I want to do as a job at that age. But my mom found an old notebook of mine from, I believe it was third grade. And it was one of those things where I guess to practice our handwriting or something, they would put a prompt on the chalkboard and then we would write out our answer.
Okay.
And the prompt was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said that I wanted to be a voice actor.
Whoa.
And I don't remember, I don't remember writing that or thinking that or anything, but apparently that day, that for whatever reason that day, I was like, yes, I want to be a voice actor, and then immediately forgot.
I was half expecting you to say, I want to be a cartoon when I grow up, which would have also been accurate technically. So.
Yeah, no, totally. And and people have asked me too, like, oh, so wait, so you said you wanted to be a voice actor or that you wanted to be the cartoon? And I'm like, no, voice actor. Like I wrote down voice actor, which is crazy. But yeah, so then I was always looking for theater stuff to do. Then we moved to Texas when I was 15, and that was a huge culture shock for me because I went from like Tulsa, which is like at the time was pretty punk rock. There weren't like there weren't really many cowboys. And honestly, and this is my bad because I now know many cowboys and country folk who are not racist, but I grew up thinking that I was in danger if I was around people like that were country. Like I had that like preconceived notion. So I was really anxious moving to Texas. And don't get me wrong, there was plenty of racism. Like our neighbor literally came and told us that she was so happy that we were white. Like whenever we moved in, and I was like looking at Gino, like thinking, like, do you need to fucking hide right now? Like, it was legit terrifying. So there was definitely racism. I'm not gonna fucking sugarcoat that, but like but it was a huge culture shock. There were not many kids who were goth or punk rock at all. There were a handful of us, and we, very, very quickly became friends.
Wow.
And yeah, but I mean, at that high school, I still have some of my best friends to this day. And also that's where I met my husband.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of great things that came out of that.
Did you meet Trina Nishimura around that time too?
No, we became friends in college,
Oh, okay.
and it wasn't until I directed her on School Rumble that we became besties.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and that's when I was like, I asked her to be in my wedding, but it was like the most like non-committal, like non-emotional way. I was just like, so Paul has a lot of dudes on his side, so I need to like even it out. Do you want to be in my bridal party?
I was just reminded of this is a total side note, but there's some panel you guys are on, and I'll just leave it at she was telling a story about working at like a mascot job as the roadrunner for like the phone company.
Oh my God.
And
yeah.
it involved getting into a tussle with some very angry, crazy children. And I just remember you being like,
Yeah.
I've known you for how long? You were at my wedding and I've never heard that story. And I was dying laughing at that. Shout out to Trina's hysterical. Those of you who don't know her, of course. But
yeah, she's literally one of my favorite people on the planet. But yeah, so I did a lot of musical theater when I lived in Texas because the church that we went to did musicals every year. And so I was in, the first one I was in was Godspell, for any musical theater nerds. And then I played Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar. And my husband played Jesus.
Oh, wow. Oh, see, it's funny. I didn't know he was doing acting stuff too at that time.
Yes,
Okay,
so
that's cool.
it's so funny because he's now like, lawyer dude, very, very good at his job, a very stable human being. But whenever we met, he was fucking just all over the place, like raver kid, like
Wow.
we met in choir. He has a beautiful singing voice. Met in choir, did plays and musicals together. Like I thought we were going to be, like vagabond artists together. And like when he was like, I'm going to get my undergrad in entrepreneurship. I was like, okay, whatever. And then he was like, I'm going to go to law school. And I was like, what? I was like mad at him for going to law school, which is so stupid now looking back at like now knowing where we are, like, and like having a kid and like, having an actual person with a stable income is like, oh, this was the right call.
I mean, no, that was literally Allison. Same thing. She was like, she just kind of fell in love with pre-med, and then I had a very skewed perception of, is college like 800 years? And she's like, only when you're training to be a doctor. Don't worry about it. Dude. So, but yeah, no, well, I mean, it's really true. And well, actually, kind of on that same note, because I know if we're getting close to that point of that, you took a tour at Funimation, and then very shortly after, like, here's my demo. Hey, I'd love to audition for you guys, which is semi unheard of for them especially.
Also, it wasn't even that professional. So I did not have a demo. So yeah, around the age of, I can't remember if my brother and I got into anime before we moved to Texas or after.
Because he's also now, now, but
he's a mixer.
Then. He's a recording engineer at some point as well, right?
He was a recording engineer to start, and now he's one of the lead mixers.
Gotcha.
And he's fucking awesome. He did the mixes for Chainsaw Man recently.
Oh, sick! Very cool. Okay.
Yeah, no, he's also a phenomenal guitarist. But I could go on about my brother for days.
I could go on about how he has a. By the way, speaking of of changing names, because you were talking about Michael from Knight Rider. I'm like, no, see, I would have loved him immediately as a kid because I would be thinking, and I know you'll probably have no idea who this character is, but there's a really, really obscure, really cool Mario character from this Super Nintendo like one-off RPG that Square Enix did called Geno. And
really?
He was like my favorite character as like a 5-year-old. So if I met, and it was spelled differently, but I'm like, your name is Gino also? He'd be like, get away from me. Nonetheless, what I was gonna ask though, leading into that, because you were saying you were doing theater a lot. I don't know if also around that time you were getting into doing on camera stuff. and also voiceover stuff even before the anime avenue opened up. But like by that point, were you already like, okay, like I'm working professionally, I'm balancing this stuff, or was that really like the beginning when you were like, hey, can I work for you guys at Funimation at that point?
Um, let's see. So all the theater and stuff that I did in high school, none of that was professional. Um, Funimation was the first place, was it? Yeah, I think it was the first place I ever acted at professionally. I did one professional theater gig like uh around the same time that I was sort of starting at Funimation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that was it, honestly. I didn't do any film until after I quit directing.
Oh, okay.
So I really got my start in theater and then voice acting. Um, yeah, and musicals specifically.
Gotcha.
That's that's
Okay.
that's primarily what I did because I uh it was like if it, I was always so much more confident in my singing than I was my acting.
Mm-hmm.
And actually that came into play pretty heavily whenever they were casting for Beck.
Yes, which I want
Um
to talk about that show for sure.
yeah, cuz I know we're kind of jumping back and forth out of order,
No,
but
no, no, please, please.
I remember for that audition um being really anxious during the reading part, but then I was like, I know I have the singing part down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for our audition, we had to sing, it was a Beatles song.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that
got a
sounds right.
feeling. It was I got
Yeah,
a feeling.
that's right. That's it. Because that was a
Um,
big plot point in the show originally. I remember that.
yeah.
Um,
But I remember like at one point, I, years later, for some reason, I think it was because I was casting something musically and I was like, someone suggested listening to the Beck auditions or something.
mhm.
So I got to listen to my audition years later after I had become a much better actor. And I had always suspected that it was the singing audition and not the acting audition that got me the job. And I was 100% accurate.
See, okay, it's funny you say that. Okay, I want to pop in for a second. So I remember the first time I know you'd been doing stuff a little bit before this, but I remember the first time that I knew of you like as a new person in the Funimation talent pool when they were opening up beyond the 20 people they used for everything in Dragon Ball and Yu and etc.
Yeah.
Was Negima.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Yue, I heard her as like, wow, this is this interesting mix of like, she's kind of a character voice a little bit, but like still felt really natural. And also for being like I'm sort of the deadpan character, but I don't feel like everything is, there was still a lot of subtlety to her. So that also by the end of that original 26 episode series you guys did when like, oh no, actually she's admitting she has feelings. And it's like, I completely
Hmm.
buy it. And it doesn't feel out of nowhere. I was like, wow, who is this genius? Okay, so there was that, and because also by that point, as you know, and as a lot of people that know me know, I'm a walking, talking weirdo encyclopedia of voiceovers. So that was when I was like, oh, okay, this is this new person, and then suddenly I was hearing you in every show. Then I watched Beck, and those of you who I haven't already raved this about 800 times, Beck Mongolian Chop Squad is one of my favorite shows ever made, and please go watch it. I've talked about it so many times on other interviews with Chris Bevins and other people. And Maho, who Brina played, is the female lead, and that is, I mean, what, 2008 at this point? It's still, I look at dubs of shows like that and all the performances, and I'm just like, wow, how do we still get it wrong sometimes? How are there still bad dubs that exist when this was made in 2008? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I was literally right there with Koyuki where I'm like, wow, I'm falling in love with this character, like,
Aw.
hard. And not only because your singing was immaculate, which was, that's a huge important part of that character, but also just uh like she felt so film like and natural and just like I know when they say that in voiceover, like what the hell does that mean anymore, like we want real, but I'm like, but she felt so real, like in a way that I hadn't experienced that much with other animated characters, let alone anime, in a long time. So
Yeah.
that was the one where I was like, wow, I think Brina is one of my favorite voice actors I've ever heard in my life. So
Oh, thank you. Well, and I do think that my newness to it helped in that regard.
Yeah.
Because I knew how to, and it's so funny because I've been told throughout my career that that one of my strengths is the ability to sound like I'm talking in a film. Like, and like not like just a character-y voice.
Yeah.
Because that can be difficult for people, especially people who got their start in theater, which is so funny because that's how I got my start. But I always got, my notes were always like, you're not in a film, you're on stage. Like, be more dramatic. And I'm like, and I don't know. I just don't. And I think that's why I love doing film so much, and why I translated, like why I was able to kind of switch over to that easily.
I was gonna say, because when I watched I watched Chariot, our lovely friend Eric Vale's film that you play a leading part in.
Yeah.
I watched that on a plane, for the full effect, because I was an insane person.
Nice.
Great movie. And I remember because I think that was the first time I saw you and Ian Sinclair on camera. And it felt
Ian was so great in that.
But I like the whole time I'm just like, oh, they must have been doing this for years, and I didn't realize that you didn't get into that until after you were directing for Funny.
I started because I didn't get my agent until I was 24, and so because I directed for Funny from 22 to 24, and then I got my agent, and then I very quickly booked like an indie film called what the hell is it called? High Schoolers Guide to College Parties. High Schoolers Guide to College Parties, which I think you can watch because it got released like 15 years after we made it or something insane.
Wow.
It was like so much later. And I felt kind of bad because I think they wanted us all to promote it, but all of us had done like way bigger stuff. And like all of us were such noobs when we did that movie. I know for me personally, I was like, I don't want people seeing that movie.
Well, now I'm going to go look it up. So get fucked.
Just know that it was literally the first film I ever did. And I was a baby. I was a baby.
Well, speaking of being a baby, you just said that you were directing at Funny when you were 22 to 24.
Yes.
Wow. Well, because I know that Colleen was mentioning recently, like at that point around that era, it was a little easier to just be like, I would like to direct. Okay, cool. We'll give you a shot on something. And then suddenly you're doing like 3 or 4 shows and you're adapting and sometimes even starring in the thing that you're directing or whatever. Like, was it a little simpler at that point to just like put forward interest, or did somebody recommend you? Or
well, actually, Colleen recruited me.
Oh, okay. So
Colleen really took me under her wing. I truly owe my career to her. She and Mike McFarlane cast me as Nina Tucker in Full Metal Alchemist, and that was my very first featured character ever. I had done a bunch of bit parts and Walla for 2 years before that. And I so before I auditioned for Full Metal Alchemist, I do have to give a shout out to Sonny Strait, because I remember going to an audition that he was running. I don't believe he did the casting, but I was on my drive to the audition. I was thinking, I don't know why I'm still doing this. I never get cast. I'm not good at this. This is my last audition. If I don't get this, then I'm done.
Oh, wow.
Like, I don't need to be doing this. And I did my audition, and I'm like tearing up. I did my audition, and then Sonny pulled me aside and he said, hey, I'm not casting this, so I don't know what's going to happen with this, but I want to let you know that you're really good at this and you should keep trying.
Wow. Oh my God.
And I was like, thank you.
And then you totally didn't cry in front of him at that time. Wow. My God.
Yeah, and like I honestly, like, I truly was ready to fight. I was like, I'm obviously terrible at this. I've been doing this for 2 fucking years. Nobody wants to cast me in anything. I'm fucking done. Like, why am I wasting my time? Because at that time I was driving from Denton to North Richmond Hills, where the studio was at the time, which is like a 45-minute drive.
Yeah.
And we were only paid $35 an hour back then. And like, I was just like, I am spending more money doing this than I'm making. Why am I wasting my time? But yeah, I kept trying, and I think it was maybe just a couple auditions after that I got Nina Tucker. And then Colleen is who directed me on it, and she, for whatever reason, just loved me, and she took me under her wing, and she cast me in Moon Phase, I think, after that. And
Yeah.
just like any chance that she had, she was trying to cast me. And then for whatever fucking reason, I don't know why, she just like was like, I think you'd be a good director. Do you want to direct? Do you want to be my assistant director? And I was like, sure. So I helped her direct a few episodes of Moon Phase, I think. And then yeah, it was I helped her, or it was Tsubasa. That's what it was. Tsubasa Chronicles.
Oh yeah.
So I assistant directed for her on a couple of those, and then she gave me the last 6 episodes of Moon Phase to do by myself, and then gave me Triple X Holic after that.
Oh man, that's going back to wow, yeah. I'm going back in time on like, oh yeah, and then when that period of time. Well, and also because I think 2007 around that time, that would have been when One Piece came down the pipe too. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I guess I was. Yeah, I think I was directing at the same time.
That would have been, yeah, because you guys. I remember being at. I tell people this a lot. I think you were there actually that weekend. I was at the Anime Expo too. It was my first time going to California ever. 2007, when Justin and Mike McFarlane went up on the like official like Toei One Piece panel and announced the 7 of you guys as the Straw Hats. I remember like that summer 2007 was when that happened, and I was like, oh, and we were all celebrating like, yay, they got the good people.
Yeah, no, I remember doing a panel. I don't know if I was at Anime Expo. I don't remember where it was, but it was like I think it was all of us. I think it was all the Straw Hats who, existed at that point in the story. And I remember being so overwhelmed with the amount of love and just gratitude that fans had. It was so opposite what I was used to, because usually people were more like, when the cast announcement is made, it's just like, well, good luck. Try not to fuck it up. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas with this, everybody was already so stoked and so excited, and like I was not used to that. Like it was my
certainly
first time.
It was the combination of, well, for one thing, with not to kick them while they're down, but like somebody else had already fucked it up, so you didn't have much to lose. But also by that time, because I remember it was like after the announcement, it was just as simple as, oh, thank God they got the Dragon Ball Z and Full Metal Alchemist people to do this show. The dub is going to be good. Like, it was as straightforward as that from when we saw the 70s. And it was funny because, like, I don't think you were doing Chaozu by that point, so you weren't even, like, technically a Dragon Ball Z person at that point.
Yeah, I was pretty new. Like, I remember I was, which is fitting for Chopper, but I was very much like the new kid. Like, I was the youngest, I'm still the youngest in the crew. Oh, wait, no, that's not true. Because Ian, I always joke that I'm Ian's elder because I think he's 2 months younger than me.
And he's playing one of the eldest of all of them, which is,
totally.
That's funny.
But at the time, I was the youngest and the newest voice actor. So I felt, because everyone that was cast was all people that I looked up to and that I grew up hearing. And so it blew my fucking mind that I was on the same show as them as a main character.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it.
Well, 1,000 episodes plus later, which, I mean, good Lord, and congrats to all you guys. And I've never stopped watching, like, still to this day. Okay, so it just sort of in that pocket of time, because I guess this was 2006 to 2008 or 9 or whatever. This was you kind of getting in on, you were in the club at that point. You were directing. You were doing a long-term, because for One Piece, you guys were doing like 100+ episodes in a movie and a video game. You said you had not started to do on-camera stuff yet.
Yeah.
So was that before? Because I know one of those early gigs was the GameStop TV thing. Because I remember seeing you on
Yeah.
camera in the store. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Was that kind of around that same time too,
No,
or?
GameStop was later. GameStop,
Okay.
yeah, that was one of the gigs that I got through my agent.
Right. Okay. But just balancing life at that point, like
I
in
was
in
also
that
in
era.
college.
Oh yeah, whatever. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it was too much. It was definitely too much. It was after, it wasn't until after school Rumble I directed Black Blood Brothers, which, uh, I just wasn't as passionate about that show as I was, School Rumble.
Mhm.
And I realized, oh, I don't like this job. I just liked the shows that I was working on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so after that, I was like, I'm done. And then that's whenever I got my on-camera agent, and started trying to do more on-camera stuff, and kind of fell in love with
Mhm.
that art form.
GameStop TV was fun. I feel like that's one of those things that a lot of people, particularly of my age, maybe a little younger, maybe a little older, would know just from like back when getting physical copies of media of anything
Yeah.
was a thing that you did. Uh, and I don't. Wait, was it? Remind me. I might be. Was it Chris Burnett? Was the guy?
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes. Which
And that was after we had done
Romeo
Romeo
X
X
Juliet, which
Juliet.
I wanted to. Okay, actually, hold on. Before I get to that, I do want to talk about, because Romeo X Juliet is also. I have not watched it since I first watched it back then, but I remember adoring that show, and I also remember that one was like. Was that not treated as like a relatively big deal for you guys when you guys acquired that show?
I mean, those of us that were on it treated it like a big deal. I don't know if marketing did.
I recall it, maybe just from like the perspective of yeah, from you guys, and what over marketing. I just remember it was like, wow, like we got this as an anime, like we get to do this, oh my god. And it was like, let's pull out all this stuff, because also Chris, that was the first time I think I'd heard him as, like, I'm sure he'd done stuff before that too, for
He
other
had done that was
roles.
his first lead for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, because that was, and who was Kent directing that show, I think, right?
No, that was Tatum.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right. That's right.
It was
Uh,
Tatum and our Bruce Elliott.
right. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Again, some of these I know are going back a long time. Any kind of standout moments or memories from that show? Because that was such a beautiful production. That whole thing.
It it was magical, honestly, and it was so fun, um, working with Tatum in that capacity.
Hmm.
He had directed me on, what was it? Aquarion, on a
Oh,
few
right.
on
Yes.
like a
Yeah.
few episodes of Aquarion. I think he had taken over for Bevins at some point, but
Hmm.
but before that, I had directed him in Black Blood Brothers. I gave him
Hmm.
his first lead role. You're welcome, world.
Ah.
Um, but like he and I just became instant, just soulmates,
Hmm.
working on Black Blood Brothers together. And then like, yeah, just directing each other. And I guess Black Butler came after that. I can't remember.
I think that was. I want to say that might have been like Black Butler. I think was after Soul Eater, if I'm remembering correctly. I think.
That sounds
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. And I don't remember where Spice and Wolf was and all that. But yeah, Tatum and I just like, I don't know. I think we knew each other in a past life or something. But we definitely like just click. Like I don't know what it is. We're just
Hmm.
we have a soul contract together for sure. But yeah, I don't I just I really loved working on that, and it was really fun working with R. Bruce Elliott too, because he I knew him from the stage. Like he was such a theater guy, and
Hmm.
like he's incredible on stage, and like just a mainstay in the Dallas theater scene. And so it was such an interesting voice to be lent to that property because he didn't know shit about anime.
Yeah, it's funny when I
Like-
saw he was co-directing it. That's immediately what I assumed is like he must know Romeo and Juliet like in and out to the
Yes,
point where like
absolutely.
we need your expertise on this. So
Yeah, and he still calls me his Juliet, which is so
Aw.
sweet. Yeah, he's the sweetest man.
I go back to the scene a lot of that's why I was thinking of Kent before was Lancelot when he sacrifices himself when he dresses up as the Red Cyclone. And then he goes off, and then you have the big "hold me back" scream. I go back to that episode like every so often. I'm just like, this is a good show.
Yeah. No, that one definitely. I definitely leveled up acting wise during that role for sure. That role taught me a lot, a lot. But yeah, where were we? Where do we go from there?
Romeo Juliet was asking about the. Also, sorry,
I love how ADD this conversation.
No, it's the best.
With
I
ADD,
love.
yeah.
Well, fair enough. Talk to my roommate at some point. You know what? I totally forgot to mention this one. You know what? And I feel bad because it's a perfect example of how, God damn it, the show deserved better and could have been so much bigger than it was. But Sergeant Frog, so funny. Tamama, which by the way, I think, and I have to bring this up because it was so cute when we were recording for my video game a couple years ago, and I think you were putting down your little lad to bed, and he was playing with a Tamama toy, and you said that he sometimes calls you Tamamama.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, well, because he doesn't care about Tamama anymore, but he did. There was like a stretch of time where he loved. I had a ton of little Tamamas that like fans had made for me, and he loved all of them. And he would make me talk to him. I mean, he likes me to talk to him. I have another story about me talking to him in character voice, but he likes for me to talk to him as his toys. He's always liked that.
Yeah.
And so I would talk to him in the Tamama voice, and that was one of his that's still one of his favorite voices. I recycle that voice all the time. But yeah, so he would pick up the toy and then like hand it to me and go Tamamama.
It's so cute.
It was so precious. So precious.
Yeah, that show was a gift. It's good Lord.
What a delight.
Yeah.
I mean, just so silly and ridiculous and fun.
And for it not even for it not being like a tremendous success like as it could have and should have been, frankly, you still did like that was a lot of episodes, I think, on DVD for that one, wasn't it?
It was quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, it's like at least like 50 something. I remember because that was a long one.
I think it might have been 52, something like that.
Yeah, could have been on Nickelodeon, could have been a staple, but
honestly,
happens, yeah. Trying to look around a little bit because I'm looking at.
The story I was going to tell about
please.
the voice thing. So just recently, so my brother is one of the lead mixers at Crunchyroll, so that means they occasionally just give people swag, and so he got me a little Mineta keychain.
Oh.
And Arthur loves it. He cannot remember the name to save his life. I could just tell him to say grape juice, but I just really like forcing him to say Mineta. And I wish I could remember what he calls it. But he asked me to do the voice. And so I was like, oh, hey, what's up, guy? And he was like, Mama, no.
he knows.
Yeah, he was like, no, I don't like that voice. And I was like, but that's what he sounds like. He talks like this, man. And my son was like, no, Mama, he's little. He's a kid. And I was like, yeah, he's like, but he's an older kid. He's like in his teens. And he was like, no, I don't like that.
Meanwhile, I love the fact that I think Chaozu's got to be in like his 30s or something at this point, maybe older. And Chopper is, I think, maybe like 18 in the current stuff or whatever. Like he's still early teens, and I'm just like, and they sound, the two of them sound like half as young as Mineta does.
And that's the voice that my son likes. He likes that register of mine. He does not like anything that's like down here. He's not into.
He likes all my characters, like all his toys talk like this, or they talk like this.
Like it's just those two voices basically.
You know what? Actually, on kind of a nuts and bolts dissecting kind of thing, because I've never thought about it, I just came to mind because that kind of register that is like the Chopper, Chaozu, Tamama kind of thing. Did that kind of like range or that sort of of character type voices, like did that evolve from something in particular? Because you said you were doing character stuff forever anyway. Like was that influenced by something in particular? From going way back.
Oh man, great question. Great question.
Because I think about like Veronica Taylor, like she talks about like her old school Ash voice was like, oh, I kind of crossed like Kid from Street Fighter with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from like the stop motion kind of things and sort of amalgamated them to what became her little boy stock and trade voice or whatever. I don't know if there was like I watched a lot of Rugrats or something. I don't know.
I definitely watched a lot of Rugrats, so I'm sure that was part of it. But honestly, as far as Chopper specifically, um, I was really influenced by the Japanese voice actor,
Yeah.
Ikue Otani. Like I and honestly, that's what for the auditions they played us her reference, and so Chopper was very, very much influenced by her, and then I think it just gradually. Oh shit! I know what it is. Fucking Pikachu. So still Ikue Otani.
Of course, still to this day, yeah, 25 years, yeah.
But Pikachu, 100%. I completely, yeah, that I just now made that connection. I loved Pikachu's voice in the Pokemon cartoons growing up. I thought it was the cutest thing I'd ever heard in my fucking life, and I often would emulate Pikachu.
So Chopper truly is just like, all right, if Pikachu could speak full sentences.
Yes.
I mean, that's when I started watching the show in Japanese years ago. I was like, this is really weird because I've been watching Pokemon for like however many years at that point, and then suddenly I was hearing her speaking in Japanese, and then when you were doing it, I was like, that's a really good sort of translation figuratively of that voice. So that makes sense. That makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
I totally used to. Like when I was, long before I was doing this, I used to like dub. Remember Ash's Charizard was like a belligerent kind of asshole that didn't do anything he said. I would always kind of just like improvise like, Charizard, come on, you gotta get it. Like, I mean, I don't know. What have you done for me lately? All right, fine. I would just do. Maybe that was the early makings. I have no idea. Actually speaking also, okay, you know what? This one wasn't on the list, but I know that this is arguably CL seems to be like, if it's not Chopper, CL seems like your most popular character of like all the stuff you've done, because I know he constantly comes up a lot.
Yeah,
and
I would agree with that.
Yeah, and because like I know mostly your kid voices of the Goofy High type stuff like that, but because I've seen bits and pieces of Black Butler, I figured it like this show might not be for me, but I know that like there's a lot of depth to him as a character from my understanding of the fan base and everything. If you want to talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of my favorite characters of all time because of that. I mean, Chopper is, probably number one just for the longevity of it, but also he goes through so much emotionally and has so many layers even within the constructs of his cute, adorable voice.
Yeah.
And CL just starts off so broken, and angry, and there's also a lot of technical difficulty with him just doing the British accent, and keeping the boy voice. So technically he's challenging, which I love, and then emotionally so challenging and so difficult. I also, during Book of Circus, which is one of the last seasons that we did Book of the Atlantic after that, which is one of the movies, but all throughout Book of Circus, that particular arc is my favorite, just story-wise, but also emotionally. I was so fucked up during that time, because I had a hole in my eardrum.
Oh God.
Yeah, and It took months to find out what it even was. I genuinely thought I was going insane because I had all of these just phantom noises that would happen in my ear, and I could hear my own heartbeat.
Jesus.
And the thing that triggered it the most was my own voice. So singing or voice acting was really difficult. And being in a group of, if there was like more than one person talking, it would, like, my ear would function like a broken speaker. So everyone's voices would be distorted. So it was really hard for me to follow conversations. So it was really hard for me to be around people. So I felt very isolated. And the things that normally would give me respite or give me joy, voice acting or singing, were also really hard. Like, it was like it would come out, it would vibrate my ear in a way that was really painful. But yeah, the first ENTs that I went to were like, I don't know, you got a lot of blood in your ear. I don't know, something's weird. And I was just like,
sounds
cool,
very
great,
familiar.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then finally I went to Dr. Wayne Kirkham, who has since retired, but literally I say he saved my life. And he was the first one to be like, well, first of all, we need to get the blood out of your ear so that I can see what is going on. And so we did that. And then he was like, oh, you have a hole in your eardrum. And that's what's causing all of these like phantom noises, and for your ear to function like a broken speaker, the fact that you can hear your heartbeat, like that's all because of this hole in your eardrum. And then so when I started having the symptoms was like in February, and then I didn't have the surgery until July. And then after a surgery like that, you are deaf in that ear for 2 months. And then you slowly start to get to your hearing back. And so it wasn't until July, August, September. It wasn't until like winter of that year. Honestly, it was like a year-long process. It wasn't until the following year that I sort of felt normal again.
When was this?
This was in 2015.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. God damn.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
Glad
that got resolved. Good Lord.
Dude, I was honestly like, because I was a pretty depressed, kid and teenager and 20 something. But in my 30s, I was doing all right until that happened. And then like, I was like right back to some really unhealthy places. But like, it was so brutal. But I was recording Book of Circus during all that. And I am so proud of that performance because I wasn't sure if I could even do it. Because like I couldn't really hear myself. It was literally painful to do it. And I wasn't sure if I could get through it. And I did. And I felt like it felt very cathartic being able to finish it and to be able to do such emotional and heartbreaking material while going through such emotional heartbreak, know?
I was going to say, probably a no pun intended, bled into the characterization itself, for sure. Yeah.
100%.
It's so fucked up how often that happens. Like, it for the art in the long run, it's like, that's awesome, cool. It really enhances it, but it's also like...
Yeah. Well, and it's also not, it's not necessary. Like, I could have given that performance without going to those
it was just very serendipitous timing.
Yeah, totally. And like I'm definitely a proponent of like you don't have to suffer to portray suffering. But for me it was therapeutic. It was like a place where I could put all of my anger, That was like a meaningful place and not like in a self-destructive place. But yeah, so that's the story of CL Phantomide.
In real life and in the show. So, wow. Good Lord. One last thing on your resume that I do want to go over because it also cannot be missed, but Summer Wars. Because it's a fantastic film. And another case where just absolutely everybody in it was brilliant. And I think that was also that was outside of like Ghibli stuff. I feel like that was kind of opening the floodgates for people like seeking out other gorgeous anime movies that would have these little limited theatrical releases and things, and we've done a bunch of those at this point.
Yeah.
Any particular memories from that was with Mike, I think, right, on that movie?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Mike McFarland
Yeah.
directed it beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
And well, here's another sob story.
Oh boy.
So that movie also means a lot to me
Mm-hmm.
because so I said before, we moved in with my maternal grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
and I grew up with her.
Yeah.
She was like my second mother, and she had passed away like a couple years before Summer Wars had happened,
Yeah.
and so I dedicated my performance to her, and so all of that all of the emotional, the pinky scene. I'll just say the pinky scene.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Uh, all of that crying was so very real and like so very honest. And I remember Mike, because that was a really difficult scene technically too, because a lot of her cries were on camera and two flaps. So we had to like match the timing of her crying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So matching the timing of the crying while also making it real was real tough. And the thing I love about Mike is that he does not settle for good enough. Like
Mm-hmm.
so we did it many, many, many times. And I remember him looking up at me because he was, very focused on the screen, trying to make sure we get the timing, make sure it sounds good, and it works on the scene. And then he looked up at me for the first time, was just like, okay, we got it. And then looked up at me and was like, oh no.
It's like, we got it. Good. Okay. We're moving on now.
Like,
Uh,
he's like, oh no, I'm so sorry.
wow. No, it's okay. We're making art. I gotta lay down. Oh
Yeah,
my
but I
god.
know my neck was wet from all of the tears and all of the crying. Like it was really again, very cathartic and very meaningful. And I wasn't going through the immediate grief at that point, but
Sure. Sure.
grief lives with us forever. So it was it was a really it felt really meaningful to me to get to make that for her and like to
Yeah.
do that for her.
And I mean, in such a serious piece of art. I mean, like that film,
Yeah,
that also still holds up.
it's
It's
so
been a little
beautiful.
bit since I've gone back to rewatch it, but yeah. I got to say too, while I'm thinking of this, not to be too self-indulgent, but I felt very honored when, however many years later, when we did Napping Princess.
Napping Princess.
Yeah, which
Whatever happened to that movie?
it came out and it was in theaters for about 5 seconds, and go look up Ancient and the Magic Tablet, or Napping Princess is the American name, which I had the great pleasure of getting to play opposite to Brina in. We were Kokone and Morio. And that
Yeah.
was just the fact that, like, because I remember seeing that in theaters. That was like, I think that was right before I started professionally, or maybe just after. And I was like, man, to be able to work with some of these people someday, and now the fact that I have so many of y'all on speed dial to do anything like this is like, it's a
Yeah. No,
tremendous honor.
I
So
remember I remember hearing that you were gonna be the dude and I was like, "What? Oh
I
my
met him
God."
when he was a child,
Yes,
like in
literally.
sweatpants and too long hair, and yeah. Wow. Well, I know we're close to the end. I have one last. You've been a treasure, as I expected. One last thing. I know at every con you've done for the last billion years. The how do you get into voice acting, and what advice do you give, etc. The world has become so different now,
Yeah.
because there are so many people in like doing voiceover in some way, whether it's online amateur stuff, or getting into a little bit of dubbing, people starting out at Crunchyroll / Funny, etc. There's still Funimation in my heart. I can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
There's so many people that do this now, and I imagine that it's a little different in terms of just the typical, like, to become an actor, like do theater, do this and that. Like in this kind of era, what is, to somebody that is kind of already taking the craft seriously, hopefully, What kind of words of wisdom do you give to people these days, or what, or I don't know how much that has or has not changed, in this our year of the virus 2023. It's mostly gone by now. What would you say to anybody out there listening that's in that kind of realm?
Diversify your skill set as much as possible, especially right now with all this shit with AI. Like, I don't know what the industry is going to look like. Learn more things than just acting, and learn more ways to act than just dubbing.
Yeah.
Like, diversify, diversify, diversify. Learn all the things, anything that interests you. This is like, as a ADHD person myself, this is time for us to shine. Go down those weird rabbit holes of interest. Like, let your hyper focus go to other shit, even if it's like, oh, I want to be a voice actor, but for some reason I'm really interested in learning how to edit. Do that.
Yeah.
Learn as many different things as you can, because I don't think this job is guaranteed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, preserve yourself. Stay creative, but preserve yourself as much as
there
possible.
are ways to be creative that are, that the more ways you know how to be creative, the more likely you will be able to stay in the creative lane of careers as the world changes in insane ways that no one can currently predict.
I could not have said it better myself, unless I played back what you did and then tried to do a better take of it, and it would be impossible. So I don't know how to end videos. Hey, thank you. This was wonderful. Seriously.
Thank you.
Are you on most social stuff? Are you Brina Palencia or Brina Kins, I think, right, on generally?
Yeah, on Instagram. Instagram is the best place to follow me, honestly. I check my
Healthy.
Yeah, I check my X, whatever the hell it's called.
Sure.
I check that maybe once a month.
Sure.
And I forget to post literally anything to it. Like, I'll remember to post like my conventions and stuff on my Instagram, but then I'm like, oh shit, I was supposed to do that on all my social media. Fuck. But it'll be like after I've already done the convention, and then I come back and I'm like, oh right.
Hey, thanks everybody who I saw at whatever con like 5 months later.
Yes, totally. So don't follow me there. I'm honestly probably going to delete that. Instagram is where it's at. I actually enjoy going on Instagram, and it doesn't suck my soul like the way Twitter/X does.
Yeah. Are you Brina Kins on that? Or
Yes.
Brina Palencia? Right,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Brina Kins, BRINAKINS.
Excellent. Well, and everybody out there, please continue. Also, just, as if it doesn't go without saying, keep on watching One Piece every, month or so. We keep getting these batch of new episodes.
And thank you for everybody who has been watching it for the past 1,000 episodes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I cannot. Wow. I'm always in awe of this thing that I just lucked into, I feel like.
No, you're playing him for a reason. Every second he's my favorite Straw Hat for a reason, and every second he's on screen is the best. And I cannot wait to hear Grandpa Baby Chopper.
Baby Geezer.
Yes. It's gonna be something else. Yeah. All right, everybody. I'll see y'all in the next one. May or may not edit this out later. I believe my next guest is going to be Tara Sands, the illustrious Tara Sands. So look forward to that. And if you have questions, not questions, sorry. If you have comments and memories and any things about some of Brina's characters, any memories of seeing her at cons or otherwise, please share your love below. Thank you all very much. Really appreciate, and keep on saying beautiful things into your microphone. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.